Hello, and welcome back to Great American Underdog, where you can hear inspiring stories of strength and success from real life underdogs. If you ever felt like you've lost your voice, not just in your ability to speak, but your ability to show up in life the way you were meant to, then this episode is for you. Maybe life knocked you off course. Maybe you've been through something that made you question who you are or what you're there to do. James Burden has lived that story. After divorce, brain surgery, hearing loss, and losing a stable career, James found himself in a place most people don't come back from. But instead of trying to push through or force a comeback, he listened. He followed something quieter and something deeper. And what transpired from this was a spiritual pilgrimage across 4 countries and a complete transformation in how he sees voice, healing, and freedom. Today, he's the founder of Unstoppable Voice, My Stuttering Blueprint, a program that's helping people stop chasing fluency and start speaking freely, even when traditional therapy has failed. In this episode, you're going to learn what it really means to reconnect with your voice, why trying harder isn't always the answer, and how to build trust in yourself after life has knocked you down. It's my honor to welcome James Burden. James, how you feeling today, man?
I'm feeling great. That was such a fantastic introduction. Thank you, Ron.
No, thank you, sir. You did it, and I appreciate you being here. And I'm really excited to go into your story. You have a lot to definitely teach the audience, and there's a lot of valuable insights that I've learned from you just from the couple conversations we've had. But just to get started, take us to the part of your journey and tell us a little bit about your life before things started to unravel, and then ultimately where you had your biggest transition.
All right. Well, before I started stuttering Blueprint and when my life was still stable and in what I thought was normal, I was living in Vancouver, BC, and I was working as a speech therapist in a little school for kids with learning disabilities. Everything, I was reasonably well paid and living life. I had my wife and my dog and liked to go skiing and all this stuff and wing foiling. And then one day I woke up, I thought it was a normal day, had a conversation with my wife. And by the end of that conversation, we were separated. And obviously, there's a lot more that goes into that, but that's what it felt like that day. And that was the beginning of the unraveling. The divorce led to the financial separation and financial challenges. And during that time, that's when I was diagnosed with a benign brain tumor. And that's how I lost the hearing in my right ear. And that process started just after the divorce started. And then, like, the burnout from working in a school with kids with learning disabilities. As a speech therapist, we have massive caseloads. Any other speech therapist can tell you about this, especially if they're a generalist school based. The caseloads are huge. You're trying to make a difference, but you're spread so thin, and so there's career burnout. So then I started Stuttering Blueprint, Unstoppable Voice, My Stuttering Blueprint. At that point, it was just Stuttering Blueprint, and I started going about things the way I'd always gone about things when it comes to stuttering. I had fluency training, fluency techniques, how to help people speak without stuttering. And we talked a little bit about mindset. We talked a little bit about, how do you feel about your stutter? But the main thrust of it was let's fix that speech so that you can feel better. And then the idea being that once the speech is fixed, I say with quotation marks, then you will feel better and everything's done. It's a very medical model. Here's a problem, we will fix it, you will feel better, and all is well. But that's just not how stuttering works. And that realization was the last pillar of my identity with all of my health and my financial situation, the marriage, all the pillars of my identity are crumbling down. And that last pillar crumbled when I had a conversation with an ex-client. This is a client I hadn't seen for 10 years, but he was a star client of mine. He had come in stuttering a fair amount. We had worked on the speech. He got it to a point where it was very, very fluent. He was feeling good. Off he went. then I get into my career as a busy school therapist, and I don't see him for 10 years. But I'm calling him up because I want to get all pumped up about how great my system is. And I get on Zoom with him, and he looks at me through the screen, and he said, James, I don't know what happened. I just started falling into old habits. The old doubts came back. I almost wonder if they ever even left. And now I'm avoiding words, I'm avoiding opportunities, I'm avoiding speaking whenever possible, just to hide this stutter, just to keep that from coming out. And it's this hit me like a ton of bricks. I'm like, okay, now I'm not even good at the thing that I thought I was really, really good at. I mean, I have been doing speech therapy for stuttering in particular for 17 years. This is an unusual thing in a speech therapist. Most speech therapists are generalists. They know a little bit about everything, but I had a lot of skills in this area, and I felt like this was one of my callings. And
That was
now
your
I've
niche.
Right. I found my niche, and now I'm no good at that in my own mind. This created this is like a crushing of the ego in such a systematic way, like one pillar, next pillar, next pillar, next, and this was the final. And I'd already started stuttering blueprint, so I was like in a panic, existential crisis. I went and I talked to all of the people that I knew, well, a lot of the people that I knew in stuttering, my old professor from university who ended up being a mentor, another mentor, and also a woman who used to run the BC Association for People Who Stutter. Before it was disbanded, it ran out of funding a few years ago, which is another story. But I talked to her, and she started asking me about, have you ever thought about the role of ableism in this idea that by trying to fix the stutter, you are saying there's something wrong with it. This, combined with new findings that are people, big giants in the field, are talking about stuttering as neurodivergence, like left handedness, like ADHD, like autism. Very different than those things. But if that's what it is, if it's just a normal part of the human spectrum, then every effort we make to fix it and correct it is sending the message that it's wrong and it shouldn't exist. And this is the society that we are steeped in, that people who stutter themselves are steeped in. And it creates this idea of brokenness that simply isn't true and actually goes on to affect the speech directly, because as we feel broken and not good enough, that affects our physiology, it affects our insides, it affects how we reflect, how the world reflects back to us. So much like, so go ahead, much like someone who stutters is listening to everybody's speech. If someone is slightly overweight, they might be looking at people's waistlines. If someone's losing their hair, they might be looking at people's hairlines. It becomes the filter by which we see the world. And this filter is what is really broken.
Well, that filter, it's so funny as you're talking. There's so many interesting things that you said. Number one is that they people think that there's a quick, easy fix. Like, okay, well, I'm gonna go get help and I'm gonna get taught how to fix my quote unquote stutter, and then I'll be better, right? Like, there's that instant gratification thing that people walk into any type of learning and development or therapy. I feel that at times they feel like, okay, well, I haven't tried traditional therapy, or I haven't gone and spoke with a coach before. So once I do that, this should fix my problems. But the problem's a lot more deep seated than just, like you said, fixing a stutter. There's this element of brokenness and this comparison game that I feel like a lot of people play, right? Like, think about social media. It's kind of no different in a way, where there's this idea of what success looks like based on what you see on the internet, and then you look at your own life sometimes and you're like, I must not be there because all these other people are here. So this brokenness that comes from that. I'm curious, James, like, in your moments of what felt like the end, what did that, I guess, brokenness feel like for you? Did it feel like your own quote unquote stutter in a way in your own life, like this little blip of a moment that kind of made you stop and realize, like, there's something deeper going on that I can work on potentially?
Absolutely. This question brings to mind a particularly low moment after the divorce. I remember I was on the floor of my parents' living room chatting to them, and I was crying, and I was in a real low moment. I couldn't believe that one of the purposes I'd set in my life was to be a good husband and a provider and all of those masculine qualities that are entrained into us, that are we are conditioned by. To be a good person, I must be these things. I must be a good husband. Now, when that was taken, I was no longer that, and it was an identity crisis. And I started to examine, well, what am I providing for? What is my real role? What is the deeper role? And that is what started this. I think it was unconscious, because one of the first things I did was go to Mexico to start working on my my offering, stuttering blueprint. Right, I wanted to go somewhere quiet where I could just concentrate, work hard, get some exercise. I love to wing foil, which is a bit like kite surfing. So I'd work all morning, and then I'd go wing foiling, come back, work all evening, just like powering at it, like going for it, like really wanting to create something. But what happened when I got there is I met my friend Matt. Now, Matt lived not far away, and he has a meditation dome set up on his property. And I met Matt, and I started to meditate with him. Now, I'd meditated before, but it wasn't a practice. But when I started to go, I started meditating once a day, twice a day, three times a day, listening to Matt's sort of pontifications on spirituality and the nature of reality and all of that kind of stuff. And this got me really interested in it. And it was on his encouragement that I decided to go to India to work with a charity that he had created many years ago, which was called Karma Flights. And what we got to do was I was helping them with their social media on the one hand, but what the fun part was I got to go on a hike with all of these winter coats that we were distributing to children in the Rakum region. It's very, very, very cold up there, and without winter coats, it makes it hard for them to get to school, to lift themselves out of poverty, and bring education, and them being able to get to school is important. So I got to go
Just
do
being
this.
able to have a coat to get to school, like, that's you think about what people take for granted in Western civilization, like, that's such a huge thing for them. Just to be able to get the motivation, like, "Oh, I have a coat, I'm gonna be warm going to school. Okay, great, this makes it easier to get out of bed and go."
Yeah, and that's a long way. They're walking like up. It's not uphill both ways. I tested it, but it is uphill. And then and these are steep, and it's cold, and it's once you hit winter, I was freezing at night. I mean, I was in all my clothes and a woolen hat and gloves, and the sleeping bag, and everything, just like so cold in these places. And these guys lived there with far less. So that was cool. Like I got to be a part of something that wasn't even about stuttering. It was outside of me entirely.
I was gonna say that because, like, you started talking about the travels that you've been on, and we're gonna get into that more. But I'm just curious, like, so this traveling that you did, this spiritual pilgrimage you ended up going on, that wasn't by choice. Essentially, it didn't start that way. At least it started after, like, you felt like there was this space you had mentioned before. What I thought was the end turned out to be the clearing. So in that clearing, quote unquote, it kind of started in Mexico, looking for ways to improve the Unstoppable Voice program.
Yes, it started out, but just even designing it from the get go was I was going down there to create the program, and some of these conversations that I had and the surgery came after that. So I've got the timeline a bit mixed up here, but that's what I wish initially went down there to do. Meeting Matt was a big part of it, and he spurred me partially to go to Nepal to do work with Karma Flights, but also to do something called Vipassana, which is a 10-day silent meditation retreat where you really get to go inside. I mean, I could go on and on about Vipassana, but that's basically it in a nutshell. And I had some realizations in there. One of which I still struggled with after, but I had this sort of realization that worrying about abundance, worrying about finances wasn't necessary. That things would work out. And It hasn't always been. I mean, I've been traveling on a shoestring, and I've been having to be careful, but it has always seemed to work out just in time. And I got my first clients in this form. I mean, I've had lots and lots of clients in my previous practice, but I started to get my first clients in this form. It's I'm not it's not fully developed yet, but I have what I need, and I can keep going. And so that was an important realization there, and how much going inside affects the outside.
Right. Like, you said in your notes before we got on the call, you said you followed a path you could feel but couldn't explain. Like, I guess what made you decide to look inward first rather than trying to build that external world around you? Was it meeting your mentor Matt and then realizing that freedom would come from working on yourself first?
I think it was listening to Matt and listening to his slight switch around of the viewpoint of life. We're all trying to work on the outside. We're trying to fix every problem on the outside. And then we are frustrated that nothing changes, or it doesn't change in the way that we like. But if we can go inward and change our viewpoint on things, change the nature of the thoughts we have about things, much like my example earlier with someone who's slightly overweight or someone who's got a slightly receding hairline, that changes the focus of what we're doing. And now to apply that to stuttering, so much of the focus has always been on reduce, eliminate, get rid of. In other words, resist, resist the stutter. And if you've heard the expression, what we resist persists, we're focusing attention on something. We're trying to avoid something, and in so doing, it tends to come back double hard. So, and this is what also happens when you do therapy without this aspect. If you focus only on fluency, you're just drawing more attention to it in basically a negative way. And you can white knuckle your way through it. You can become more fluent. And this is what I help people do. You can sound fluent, you can act fluent, but you don't necessarily feel fluent. And if you don't feel, and not even fluent, you don't feel good in yourself, you don't feel whole. This is where the negative thoughts come back around. And in the case of stuttering, it is a very quick litmus test of your mindset, because the stuttering tends to come and go along with how much negative thoughts you're having about it. I mean, not entirely. It also just comes. I'm not saying that. I'm not talking about pure power of positive thought and airy fairy, think good thoughts and you won't stutter. I'm not trying to say that. I'm just saying that when we do focus on the negative, when we do focus on the fear aspect, it does tend to boomerang around.
Well, it's not as you said, airy fairy, like it's real. Because even if you think about financial stress, let's just take that as the example here. When somebody focuses on, I'm in debt, I can't afford my bills, I don't have any money, they can white knuckle themselves and say, I'm going to work hard and make money. And they can really like work hard at trying to do that and grind it out, quote unquote. And that's a lot of times celebrated in Western civilization. But like my wife always says, everything's always working out for our highest good. Like that is something she says every single day. And when you actually say it, but then also tie the belief system to it, your confidence grows that that's actually the case. So whether you have a negative $100 in your bank account or you have $100,000 in your bank account, it kind of doesn't matter in a way if you don't feel wealthy internally. Because we know, we both, you and I, I'm sure, know a lot of wealthy people who happen to be miserable
Oh
because
yes.
they never worked on anything on the inside. And then you also have people that might make $500,000, but their cost of living and how they live their lifestyle, they spend more than that every year, and then they feel broke. And some people never see $500,000 a year, but yet they have it and they still feel broke. So how you feel on the inside is definitely a driver. Now, like you said, fluency and focusing on the fluency is only a portion of it. I think tying the spiritual piece, because if you believe good things, like you're sending those thoughts, that energy, that vibrational frequency through your body every day. So if you believe genuinely you're going to overcome that stutter, and then you work hard at doing that in a state of alignment, which we're going to talk about more, I'm sure that the results that you see from those types of clientele are way more powerful than the people that go in there, or in the past when you've done traditional fluency teaching. Um, the results are variously different. Would you say yeah to that?
Absolutely, I would 100% agree with that in terms of my own results. I'd also like this. This brings to mind an experience I had many years ago in my practice, where a man came in with his son, and he was very concerned that his son was starting to stutter. He was a young boy. I have to keep everything, confidential here. But the man himself stuttered very intensely. But I had never to this point met someone who did it so unself-consciously. The confidence in this man when he stuttered was palpable. He looked you in the eye. His shoulders were back. He just kept talking and he didn't worry about it. Now this is a high end state. I'm not saying that my clients need to just magically be here or even get there. That is one way of being. You can also use strategies to smooth out the speech as well. These things are not mutually exclusive. But in this person's case, he stuttered very, very confidently, which goes to show that stuttering does not mean someone's not confident, but it can make somebody not confident if they let it, or if they have not uh, done the work to decondition themselves. And it's hard work, and I'm not putting anyone down who hasn't done that yet. This is just a different way of thinking about it. But if this man can stutter confidently and simultaneously worry about his son starting to stutter, you can see how complex this is. He can be totally cool with his own stutter, but not so, but very concerned for his son. So is it entirely gone? No, but for him, very much well dealt with. He changed my view on stuttering a great deal.
Yeah, well, also you think about like you mentioned neurodivergence before, and you think about how people just think differently. And we always say, like in athletics, like everybody's body is different. You could have two people that are 6 feet tall, 170 pounds, and be completely differently built, the same size, same height and weight, but that 170 pounder is a bigger 170 pounder. Like even in the boxing world, that comes into play. And then some people just more naturally gravitate to athleticism, right? Like, and it just depends on the person. It depends on people's personality. It depends on your genetics. It depends also on your thoughts every day. His fear might be more linked to his son stuttering than compared to his lack of fear about stuttering with himself, because he just believes in what he's saying irregardless. He still has the stutter. So maybe he can, maybe, and correct me if I'm wrong with all of this, he could still go and actually benefit from traditional speech therapy for his stuttering. He has like the inverse of what you see with some people, where they need the traditional, but they also need the inner work. Is that correct?
I'd say in this man's case, he doesn't need any help whatsoever, at least as far as himself. I mean, he might, I mean, I don't know him well enough now. This was many years ago. But I mean, being concerned for his son is natural. It's a natural thing to do as a parent. You're not there to just be confident for the child, and you may be thinking about having to go through some of the things that he went through to get to the point where he is, and not wanting his son to have to do that, because it is a journey, and most people are doing this alone, and it is a testament to that man's, I don't know, call it will, vibration, alignment, whatever, that he was able to do that on his own. Not everybody can, and not everybody needs to. There are, and this is the power of people coming together to become okay with this part of them that they have previously not accepted. And I also want to speak to the word acceptance here, because I think that will get up a lot of people's noses. And understandably, if you're someone who stutters and you're listening to this and it's saying, I don't want to accept my stutter, this sucks. I hear you. So the difference between acceptance which is realizing that it is and in this moment cannot be changed, and resignation, thinking it can never be changed, is two different things. But self acceptance, accepting what is, accepting yourself for who you are, believing in yourself as a confident communicator, whether you stutter or not, is a step along the way to.
Yeah. That's like being able to accept where you are in life in general compared to resigning and giving up. Like if you have a dream in your mind, whatever it might be, you could accept that you're not there yet, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you're not going to get there. But the minute you resign and give up, you're never going to get there.
I love that. Yes, perfect analogy. Also, it kind of speaks to my own experience in building my program, because as at the beginning it was ego based. I had lost my source of wealth. I had lost my identity. I wanted a new one. I want to be the stuttering guy. I want to be the savior of people who stutter, and I'm going to help them feel better, and that's going to be great. Very ego oriented, right? It's about me. But I had to let that go to actually be helpful. And this is where I have made that shift in. I don't want this to be, I don't want to be pretend to be some kind of guru or pretend to be some kind of savior, because I'm not. But I do have a set of experiences which is unusual, in that I have known and worked for a large number of people who stutter. And because it's 1 in 100, and most people who stutter are trying to suppress or hide or just get by without stuttering, many people don't know that there's other people out there. Or if they do, it's kind of an intellectual idea. Yeah, there's other people who stutter, but I don't want to be a part of that. Allowing what I'm trying to create now is not about me and my ego, but creating something that allows people to bring together, and then not even having ownership of it. I don't need to be a
It's not
big
about
part
you,
of it.
James, and
No, no.
I don't get that vibe from you since the moment I met you. And I also would change one little word that you use from your experience being unusual to your experience being very unique because of what you've been through. And just that like little shift of unusual to unique, even with somebody who stutters, like just because not everybody stutters out there doesn't make you unusual. It makes you unique. You have a unique set of circumstances, but you're also not alone in that set of circumstances, right? And like you're saying, that togetherness. But it sounds like that you wouldn't have figured this out if you didn't go through what you went through, you know, where the unraveling happened, but then also this spiritual pilgrimage. Like, what's been the biggest thing that you've taken out of that? Is it to look inward, like trust your inner guidance system? Was it meeting your mentor? Like, talk to me a little bit about how that has shaped what will be the spiritual part of learning how to break your stutter.
It's been a journey. So there was the meeting of my mentor, Matt. There was Vipassana. There was a couple experiences, and this is what I really drew from it, is as I went inward, things did begin to reflect in my life back to me. One of the things that happened was I went to this place called Muktinath in Nepal, and it's way, way high in the mountains, and it is one of the sources of the Ganges, I believe. Very, very holy water, way up in the mountains at its absolute source. And there is a temple there that has 108 fountains and 2 dipping pools. So in this place, I went up there. I was giving to all of the holy men and the people begging, and I was just like, I was very much in it. I was meditating at different shrines. And then I did the 108 fountains and the double dip. Um, and then I went and did it all again the next day. And as I'm exiting the temple, I look at my phone, and there's an email from my ex-wife who I hadn't talked to in 2 years. And that sparked a text conversation that led to forgiveness and letting go. I left a lot of the baggage of my old identity and my old role as provider and how I'd failed as a husband because I'd had a divorce. I left that baggage on that mountain. And that was one of the things that cleared. And there's many more to come. And I'm still in the process and probably always will be. But that seemingly unconnected two experiences seem connected to me. This purification in holy water, this meditation, this going to a holy place that's immediately followed by letting go of something so profoundly important to my previous life that no longer mattered. These don't seem like coincidences, and there have been many, many more similar, smaller coincidences like that in this journey.
Yeah, but that's been like that was like a big moment, and it's funny, um, again, if you're religious, uh, all different types of religion out there, all different things that we can learn from all of them. But I think that the universe gives us what's called, as Eckhart Tolle talks about, signposts. Right, there are signposts. There are things in our environment, and then also across all these different religions that point to a lot of these similar things, themes in our lives that we should live by. And one of them, I believe, is sacrifice, but also forgiveness, like knowing that you're going to sin and that you're going to make mistakes along your journey, and then realizing that you can forgive yourself. And I think that the universe does things on purpose. Like there's definitely a higher energy that's guiding you. And I think that in that moment, like how crazy, like you're telling me you read an email after walking out of there, and what a place to get an email in the first, in general,
Right.
like how disconnected from like all these holy fountains. And then here's this weird piece of non like this technology, right, that's so not earth, like that's so not foundational to the universe, but part of our existence, pinging you. But in a way, it's also connecting that bridge, right? Because in that moment you walked out of there, and then you also were able to leave and shed all this weight in that place, to be able to move on. So like that definitely, it sounds like, shifted your perspective permanently along this journey.
Yeah, and actually, you remind me of the very, you asked me the origin story, and I keep thinking back a little bit further. It was meeting Matt, it was going to Peru, I mean, Nepal and India, and now Peru. It was those things. But my initial experience of, I think they call it Satori, when you sort of feel that connection to everything, was after reading Eckhart Tolle's book. So I'd read it like 5 times um, on Audible because I didn't get it. I'm like, what? I got to read that again and again and again. And so then,
It's not something you get the first time you read it, for
no,
sure.
no, it's so not the way we think the world works, and yet it is. And so many different ways have explained this. And I went and I had been listening to this, and I'm a big skier, right? So back in before the divorce, even, I'm listening to this. It's been the fifth time, and I'm in line at Whistler, and it's during COVID, so you gotta like line up stupid early. Like the mountains were barely open, so it was like 5 hours door of my house, drive to Whistler, wait in line, wait in another line, wait in peak line, and it's a beautiful bluebird day. It's like blue sky, perfect powder. There's like, I think, 30 centimeters or more of powder on the ground. I'm psyched. I'm near the front of the line, and I've been listening to this book for 5 hours. And I've been meditating, and so I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and be really present for this ski run. And I got to the top and I skied the perfect ski run. I was ahead of everybody. I was like getting all the lines, fresh lines, perfect. I get to the bottom and I have this experience of being connected to everything. And then after that experience, for the next 3 months at my job at the school, everything seemed to work. Like the advice I would give was well received. I was in flow. And then that just kind of went away. But that was my first like free trip to the circus, Oh, here's what it looks like, now go get back there yourself. So now I'm in that process, and it's nowhere. It doesn't always work that easy, but it was a sight. It was a glimpse of what's possible.
And I think that we get those glimpses in different seasons of our lives, right? Like it's not, and like you said, it's not something that you just find and then all of a sudden you're fixed. It's a continuous journey to work on yourself. And also, as things change around you in your environment, right? People change, scenarios change, all these other things. But then it's, as Brian Tracy says, you run everything through that screen of beliefs in your brain and you decide if it's good or bad, right? Like it's like your own personal filter. So you have to be, if you hadn't listened to that book for 5 hours leading up to going down the hill, you might not have that moment at the bottom, and also have the mindset to be able to recognize the moment, because many people have those moments and then they just glide right over them because they don't give themselves enough time to be present and recognize what's really happening internally, and then essentially how that's creating their external environment as well.
So what you just mentioned, if I could like refer to the masterclass that I was talking about earlier. So I have this masterclass is like 19 minutes. It's not a long one, but what the purpose of it is to begin to unpack the way that society, our own thoughts, our own beliefs about stuttering impact us and actually make the stuttering experience worse. It doesn't, and like the experience of being a stutterer or someone who stutters is made so much harder by all of this conditioning. And the starting point is to unpack some of that conditioning. Now, if I just come out and say, the stuttering it's not bad. It's just you've been conditioned to say that. Most people are going to react and say, forget about that. You don't know what you're talking about. It feels bad. It is bad. Leave me alone. You don't know what you're talking about. The unpacking piece is more of a systematic look at the way we think about stuttering, the way others react to us and reinforce that thinking, the way that it occurred in the first place by this root of neurodivergence, and what that actually means, what the implications of that are for your feelings or someone's feelings about their place in the universe as a person who stutters. How is it that I came to think the way that I do about this? Because there are huge similarities in most of the clients that I've met over the years. I've talked to hundreds of people, and these similar stories come in of self-doubt, feeling broken, feeling like there's something wrong. And the starting point is to unpack some of that and to begin to realize that it is conditioned.
Yeah, that's so crazy because like I just think about that and I sit back and I say to myself the times where I've doubted myself in some of my things that I could do, like just even in boxing. And I think we went over that before in the past where I got into a fight with a friend of mine in high school. And like if you had asked anybody in my family, like they never pinned me as a boxer because I was a skinny guy. Like I didn't pick fights with people, right? Like I got happened to get into one. But to your point of just like, like all the things up to my point up to that point in my life told me like, yeah, if I have to defend myself out of security, great. But like, I'm not going to purposely put myself in a ring. Like I can't go win a boxing match. I'm too small. I'm not good enough. I'm not athletic. I've been getting run over my entire life in football. I didn't make the basketball team or the baseball team. All these things in my environment that told me I could not do it, and I still went out and won a state championship in boxing. Now, that's not to toot my own horn. It's to actually make your point because it happens to everybody, whether you stutter or there's something else that in your environment told you couldn't achieve what you're capable of living up to a potential that actually exists. There's a reality of somebody that stutters, that overcomes that stutter because they unpack those things, and you've helped people do that, James. Like that's the incredible portion of this, and I know that like you're not the hero of the story, they are. And I think that when they feel that, when they interact with you, I know that anytime that I've worked with a coach, you've probably worked with a coach, when you feel inspired and confident, you're more likely to work on those harder things in a more proficient and efficient way. So, like, just listening to the way that you're explaining how you unpack those things first allows them and gives them the space to now work on the stutter, allows them to build the confidence. Not necessarily that the confidence comes from curing the stutter.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the outside piece, the stuttering piece itself, using fluency tools is an option. It's a tool. It shouldn't be seen as the way to feel better. It's a way to get through moments. It's a way that it's something some people might use forever. Some people might use and then let go. Some people might never use and just go straight into, I want to reduce my avoidance of stuttering. I don't care if I stutter. I want to be able to do it with confidence. Now, I love working with clients who want to do that. I love that. That's great. But I'm not going to turn away a client because they're not ready for that. We have to meet people where they are. A lot of people just come to me looking for a solution to the speech. Please just help me with this. And I can, but it won't take necessarily. It won't take unless there's at some level a dealing with the deeper emotions, experiences, viewpoint on the world.
Yeah, even in and I just use the parallels from what I know in my own environment in life, but like even when I've taught people with boxing, if they don't believe that they're capable of doing it in the first place, like they're so tense, all the emotion that's built up in them, I could feel it on them. I could see it on them because the way that they hold their hands, they go like this and they're very tight, right? Like they're scared to let loose almost. And when they start relaxing is when they start doing the best. I always say boxing is calm in a state of chaos. You have to be able to think. It's not an angry or aggressive sport. Like it's not like I'm tougher than you type of sport. It's thinking. And in order to think, you have to be calm. And you also have to trust yourself. And you had mentioned like before, like real change doesn't come from trying harder, like right, like aggressively throwing those punches or coming to you and saying, "I just want to get over this stutter." It's trusting deeper. So like, what does that trusting deeper actually look like when they're working with you, James?
The trusting deeper is a trusting in oneself. It's like trusting that your message, the thing that you want to communicate, matters more than the way it sounds. And this is where we get people who are able to communicate by stuttering openly. This is also ways that we can get people to ease their communication using some level of communication technique or speaking technique, but at the same time accepting that sometimes it's not going to work because there is no perfect technique. There is not a perfect technique that will make you never stutter again. I mean, neurotypical people, people that don't identify as stutterers, still stutter just under 1% of our syllables. That's like we all do it. It's if you attempt to stutter 0% of your syllables, you're trying to stutter less than your average person stutters, and it's really very unlikely. So even if, let's say, I was able to cure somebody by making them speak just like a neurotypical person, they would still stutter sometimes. So if there is no mindset work, then that stutter, when it comes, goes down the road, goes the downward spiral towards, oh no, I stuttered. What are people going to think of me? Tightening up, I stutter more. But it can also run the other way, just like you were talking about with the boxing. The confidence, I stuttered and it didn't actually matter. I guess I could keep going, and then I'm going to try it with this other, you're not going to start
Oh,
doing.
I got punched in the face and I'm actually okay. Like,
Yeah. I'm sure when people stutter, it feels like on an emotional level, like getting punched in the face when that wince that sometimes people don't know how to react to it. And this is another part of the reason I'm so glad you're having me on the show is to normalize stuttering. I want like the people in the world that are listening that don't stutter to realize there are so many false beliefs about stuttering. Stuttering does not mean somebody's nervous. It doesn't mean that they are less intelligent. It doesn't mean that they are can't think about what they want to say. They haven't forgotten their name. Okay, that's the stupid thing that people always say to people who stutter, because people who stutter tend to stutter on their name. What, you forget your name? It drives people crazy. I've said so many of my clients
Those are the
be
type of
annoyed
people
by
that I
that.
wanna put in a ring and I get aggressive over. Like, because I can't stand people that, like, you just judge right out of the gate, but go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, no, I hear you, but I also like there are so many different ways of being in the world. It suddenly made me think, because I work with people who are neurodivergent, like for my entire career. I've worked with tons of people who are ADHD. Okay, tons of people who are ADHD, and interrupting is kind of a thing, right? Now, when someone like who has ADHD, who is sort of like someone who interrupts all the time because they just can't stop the thoughts and they just want to say it right now, and then they meet someone who stutters, who's like trying to say a word, and then imagine these two people meeting, and now the person who stutters thinking about the person with ADHD, you're so rude, you're interrupting me all the time. I was, and then the person with ADHD is feeling like put upon for being, oh no, they're criticizing me for my ADHD again. So I'm not saying there's always an innocent explanation, and people are jerks sometimes. They certainly are, but there's so many situations where like I've seen different kinds of minds interact with one another that just don't gel so good, especially when they don't understand each other. So my role in the school, as much as I could as a mostly neurotypical person, was to help explain different forms of neurodivergence to neurotypical people and the other way around, so we can all just get along. So, you know, the I understand your visceral reaction to that, but sometimes people's own neurodivergences kind of
Well, it's
spur those.
funny, and I'm sorry. I'm gonna correct myself because that is a visceral, emotional reaction and not one that I think through, right? Like I instantly get upset for the person stuttering when, like you just said, you just don't know what people are going through, right? Like that person could be ADHD and just like, come on, spit it out, and their just brains going 100 miles a minute. It's not necessarily like they think the other person's dumb or they don't know their name. Like you could just have two people that are in a conversation. You just don't know what's going on behind the scenes, like within their brain. And that's something that I feel like is a lesson for everyone because especially in the world that we live in where technology and the way people push themselves and their image on social media, you create these perspectives around people. Like even me running the podcast, like I have people that talk to me like they know me because I run the podcast and they hear me talk. And in a lot of ways, they do know me because I'm my authentic self when I get on here. Right. But at the same time, like you don't know the ins and outs of my everyday life or why I am the way I am unless you talk to me. And I feel like two people that come together in a conversation, a lot of times people are just so quick to judge. So then I get upset at those people that are quick to judge.
No, I hear you. And the quick to judge part is challenging. I know
It's
because
it's its own version of quick to judge. I'm sorry, like,
it is. It is. I mean, you
and I just
can't.
recognize that now in our conversation. So thank you.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't do it. I was just hanging out.
Yeah, yeah.
Good on you for recognizing it. And one of the things that I've noticed is as as I become more public with my views on stuttering, it is a sensitive topic, and a lot of people are hurting. A lot of people are hurting a lot, and a lot of people are hurting alone. And it's impossible to speak on this subject and never put a foot wrong, never say something that somebody might find offensive. Even though I think my message is mostly hope and light, but occasionally I've had people be quick to judge me, and I have to realize that this comes from a place of deep trauma, and it comes from a place of being misunderstood themselves. So I've been told to F off on Facebook. And I was, when I first did it, when I was in my ego portion, I'm like, how dare they? I'm trying to help and you're telling me to F off. And like, and later on, I'm like, yeah, that must be hard.
Yeah, you almost feel sympathy for those people. Like Mel Robbins, you know Mel Robbins?
Yes, I've heard that name.
Yeah,
Can you
so
remind me?
she's a speaker and author, business professional, but she always talks about a concept called "let them." Like, think about road rage and how people get road rage, like because they got cut off or the person didn't go right away when the light turned green, and then they're angry. Like the retaliation to that is also just as bad as them getting mad in the first place because you're feeding that energy. So like when she says let them, like, okay, somebody rode really close behind me in my car and then sped by me and beeped at me and got aggressive, let them. Don't go back and retaliate and like, oh, let me show you like what I can do now. Nothing gets solved by that. So a lot of times, like when somebody might come at you over the internet because you added a piece of value that they didn't like, because they're probably more upset with themselves, I got to let you do that because I can't fix your problem for you if you don't see the problem.
I haven't fixed anybody's problem in my entire career.
Right. Right.
Like that's
They
not what I
eventually
do.
they do it themselves. You just are kind of act like as a guidance system. And
Exactly.
even me in my own coaching and in my own business, like in sales and marketing, like I'm just there to guide you. Like you got to follow the concepts and do the work essentially.
And I've had to learn that in this journey myself is a certain amount of sovereignty over this is my vision. This is the I'm trying to do it. I mean, I want to be able to like make it and let it go and not have it be about me. But right now we're in the stages where I'm still constructing the main vision, and I have been in coaching services that didn't align, and it's not because they were bad coaches. They they didn't align. I mean, I'm into my human design. We don't necessarily have to go deep into that, but I have using that I've begun to understand myself on a different level. And first off, for me as a person, I'm just gonna say splenic projector for those of you who knows what that means. That's what I am. It's about leading from
Can you say that again?
quiet.
Splanet projector?
Splenic projector. So if you're
Splenic.
into human design, it's the my type is projector. My authority is the spleen, and you'd have to do some research into that. I could get too deep into it. And then my strategy is waiting for the invitation. So when I mean waiting for the invitation, this is not I'm not the kind of person that's going to go out there and wave a flag and say, "Come do my thing." It's more like, I'm here. This is what I represent. If you invite me to work with you, if you invite me to just be part of your world, not even work with me, but just if you invite me to, and by doing that, you could sign up for the master class and check that out, or and then receive very informative and not too many emails. And this is one of the things that I started to realize. I was trying to make myself into a generator or like one of these and most of the coaching services are out there for generators of people that are like, work, and that works for them. They gain energy by their work. But my job is more of a gentle guide, and certainly not an instructor. It's more of like, I've had my lived experience. I have the experience of knowing and working with all of these people who stutter. I don't have the experience of being a person who stutters. And while that hurts me in some ways because I don't have that lived experience, it also brings me out and allows me to see it without having experienced that particular pain. So I don't have I'm able to
Emotional attachment.
yeah, I don't have that level of emotional attachment where I've lived through it and it's affected the way I think about the world. I see a lot. I don't see a lot of support for stuttering out there, but I see a lot of. There's some lots of great people doing lots of great things. Some people who stutter are doing it, and they have that experience. So if that is something that is going to resonate with you, if that's important to you as a person who stutters, then by all means pursue that. If this resonates with you, then please feel free to invite me, check out the masterclass. But I'm not here to force anything on anyone. First off, it doesn't work with my way of being, and secondly, it just doesn't work for people who stutter. You start adding pressure to this mix, it'll be crickets.
Yeah, and I've seen that even in situations with boxing where somebody comes, from a bully situation and they want to learn how to box or they want to lose weight, right? And they want to learn how to box from a health benefit standpoint. If I just go in there and I'm like, "Ooh, rah, throw on the gloves, let's go spar," like I'm gonna come after you and throw punches at you on day one. The pressure of that, they're never coming back, and they're never going to go through some learning curves that can really like help them internally. Forget about just the like what you learn how to throw punches, like the confidence level, the discipline level, the respect, the way you carry yourself in public now because you know that in your heart if you had to do something you could protect yourself. Like all these little things that you wouldn't get to do because I too early put the pressure on you to try to force you out of your comfort zone. Like I got to work with you where you are. And to your point about the coach piece, like I work the same exact way. In fact, my business partner and I, Sandy, we talk about a concept called high noon. And what high noon is, and this works for whether you're buying anything, something personal or professional happens in your life that not forces you, but causes you to take action and make a decision. We call that high noon. And we always say that we're looking for the people that are looking. So we don't go out there, we don't spend any money on ads because we just tell people like you. We tell people who we are, what we believe in, and what philosophy, strategies, tactics, techniques you'll learn when working with us. And then when you reach a point of high noon, you think of us in your brain because we're in alignment with you in terms of philosophy a lot of times, and we're just going to work on that with you and then teach you the following strategy, skills, tactics, techniques from there. But I don't want to just get anyone into my community or coach anyone. Like my time and energy I also have to protect because I want people that are looking, that are going to dive in and say I want to get better, and we're going to really really jive because I'm going to give you my everything. So when you see somebody that comes into wanting to, get over their stutter, you're not just looking for and just anybody, right? Like you're looking for the people that are looking. It sounds like, and that's super important for anybody that runs any type of business, but also more importantly than running a business, genuinely wants to guide people and help them make the best decision for themselves.
And the what you're describing is what I want for Unstoppable Voice. Just it's not going to be a fast burn. I'm not going to be sending out Facebook ads. Tried it, didn't align with me. This podcasting, creating relationships, having conversations, this is so much more aligned. And I want to speak a little bit about what you just mentioned about someone who got bullied and then like shows up, because it sparks like a really cool traveling story if you want to hear it.
Please, yeah.
Okay, so when I first arrived in Peru, just recently, I landed and I had a ride to my hotel all sorted out, but it turned out to be a setup. Okay, so the taxi driver that I had arranged from Mexico, because that's where I was before, showed up on purpose in a car that was too small for all my gear, so that the taxi mafia that hang around Lima could pick me up in their nice big van and start hustling me. So this is what happened. I had like a 5 minute cab ride for $50 US, and I got put into a dumpy hotel that was like 3 times the price. And these guys were in my room with me, helping me with my gear, and then they didn't leave until I paid them. It was very like an intimidation thing. I woke up that morning and I snuck out of the hotel, and out of the frying pan into the fire. I found another person, but they were just in a different gang. And this guy set me up to be on a bus. I'm going on my bus with all this gear up to the place I'm going to go wing foiling. In the middle of the night, I get pulled off the bus by the biggest man I've ever seen in my life. This dude, his shoulder, I'm 6'2", and his shoulder was where my head stopped. And he's dressed as a cop, but he had a mask on. Now they got me up in the middle of the night. I was disoriented. They got me outside. We have to search you. Your passport says some BS about my passport. And then they searched me, and then they just went through everything and took all my money. And I didn't figure it out till later that they weren't even the real cops. So then I got to Mancora, where I was going to go wing foiling, and I was scared. I was super scared, and I didn't want to go out. I'm like, the world is a scary place. Now I'm looking through the world through this lens. Before this experience, I was like, I'm fine. I've traveled all over Nepal and India and Mexico. I'll buy bus. Everything's fine. Now I'm in this scared place. So then, when I was in Pisac, which is this place behind me, my spiritual intention in this place was to let go of that fear. So I went and I did an ayahuasca ceremony. I don't know if you're familiar with these, but you take the medicine and then you feel sick and you throw up and then you see visions and then you take more medicine and it's like this. And each time I would throw up, I felt the fear releasing. And so now I'm in back in Mankara in a nice place, very safe, doing a lot of meditation, and I'm integrating all that experience. And the release of that fear has started to open up all sorts of interesting avenues. I'm integrating all of this spiritual stuff that I've been kind of working on all year and rewriting my approach to unstoppable voice in a way that feels so much more aligned than ever before. So this fear, this, and the reason I bring that up is because like after I was first robbed, I was offered to work and go to do Muay Thai with a friend and learn how to like defend myself. And in the end, I made the decision what I really need to do was learn how to communicate better. I mean, I'm not going to fight a guy dressed like a cop who's like a foot taller
No,
than
who's
me.
also got all the resources, knows the
right,
land. Like,
right,
no,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm
no.
not in my element,
No,
in that
no, no.
situation.
So, but it was interesting that place of that bullying, because this felt like a bullying kind of a situation, and there's so many people who stutter go through bullying, and it's like it's not necessarily about you can learn physical combat if that helps you feel better on the inside, but it's about what's going on the inside, not your ability to fight. Would you agree with that in boxing?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about what's going on the inside. Everybody walks into the ring and they get butterflies. Anybody that tells you otherwise is a liar, and they lie about other things too. Like, you have to feel confident in yourself enough to say, like, I'm not going to get hurt, at least. Regardless if you're successful or not is a whole nother story if you were competing. But just to go in there and have enough, release enough of the fear to say, I'm going to go in there and go to learn and not get worried about, not let my emotions be the driver behind this environment. Because the minute that, like I was telling you before, the minute you let the emotions overrule you in boxing, you're probably going to lose. Like, I used to go into the ring and be very aggressive, like kind of bully-ish in my own way, because I'm about 6 feet tall. And when I won the state championship in New Jersey, I was only 132 pounds. So I would go in at six. This is what I was telling you about before. Two people the same size. We're both 132 pounds, but I'm 6 feet tall. I got so much more reach on the guy that's in front of me, and I'm just physically bigger. So I would just go in and just throw, 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 and people would get overwhelmed and lose. And then I ran into someone in 2015 at 147 pounds. I went up in weight, and I said, you know what? Because amateur boxing is based on points and volume, they're not going to beat me on points and volume, because I'm just going to go in and swing and be the aggressor again. And what I learned was you can't be the aggressor with somebody who's thinking, because he just waited me out until I got tired and kept catching me until the third round, where I was so exhausted. I walked straight in. He hit me with a body shot and dropped me with a body shot with like 30 seconds left. And I lost the fight. I got up in time before the bell, but when I got up, I stumbled. So the ref just called it at the end of the fight. But to your point is, like, the fear of losing in front of other people drove that aggressive behavior. The fear of getting knocked out or hurt drove that aggressive behavior. And also, like, the aggression behind the behavior is what I think caused me to lose more than actually help him win. Like, it actually helped him win, rather. Like, so I think, to your point too, we have to be able to recognize when fear shows up and then decide, what are we gonna do about it? How do we want to act? How do we want to move forward? And I think that becomes practiced over time with maturity and learning. And we also have this big fear, James, as you know, of everybody's biggest fear is making a mistake. Like, you just don't want to make a bad decision or mistake. Even like when you go to buy a car or whatever you're doing, a big purchase, like you walk in defensive because you're worried about being taken advantage of or make a mistake. So, you had said something that I absolutely loved before in the past, which is I don't force outcomes. I follow what feels aligned. Like how does what we're talking about kind of play into that? Like how do we find that alignment? Is it through overcoming that fear and trusting ourselves deeper so that way we can get more aligned to get closer to our goals?
I think you have it there. To put this in stuttering terms, with stuttering, it's the speech itself is not the barrier. It's the fear and the shame that come with it. And so you talked about the fear of stepping in the ring. And I think so many of my clients, people who stutter in general, have this fear around speaking because it might reveal their shame. And I use that very, very strong word for a purpose. Because shame in this sense of this idea of being broken, being not enough, being not good enough. Now, Brene Brown talks about shame a lot. You're familiar with her?
I'm not actually. I'll
Oh,
write her
okay.
down.
So Brene Brown is a shame researcher, and she's very famous. I highly recommend checking her out. And she talks about fear thriving under three conditions. Sorry, shame thriving in three conditions. So one is silence, one is secrecy, and the third is judgment. So where there is silence, secrecy, and judgment, there will be shame. Now, with stuttering, it is the trifecta of silence, secrecy, and judgment. We stay silent to avoid stuttering. We keep it a secret. We don't want anyone to know, and we judge ourselves for having done it or continuing to do it. And shame, if you look at like the spectrum of vibration and emotion, shame is below fear. It is like it's like the existential fear that we do not belong in this universe, not good enough, broken, right? So this shame and the fear that stops us from experiencing putting ourselves out in situations where we could actually get a reflection back that we are. So we stutter and no one cares. We we go up and we do that speech. We apply for that job. We talk to that person that we are interested in romantically. And yeah, sometimes you're going to get rejected. Sometimes you're not. And if you don't do it, you're never going to not get rejected. You're going to always have rejected yourself before you even got there by this self selection. So it is overcoming that fear and shame and being willing to make mistakes in a process by which we overcome the fear and the shame. And that is what I am looking to help people do.
Right. No, that's such a great point. And it's like these are universal. I think these are universal truths that um whether you stutter or you're trying to overcome some kind of, massive obstacle in your life, sitting in silence, um sitting in secrecy or, let's just say judgment of yourself, all these things keep you from your goal. And I think that a lot of times too is people don't future pace themselves at all, right? Like they never say to themselves, like, who do I want to become? Like they get very stuck in what's already happened to them. And like your story is so profound in so many ways because you felt like it was the end, but then you made these decisions to not stay stuck, not stay in silence, not stay in secrecy of how you were feeling, or judgment. I'm sure that you went through all three of those things, during that time. But then you still like life still moved forward, time still went on, and you kind of trust you were able to trust your gut enough to go on the journey that you did, which has led you to where you are today. So You might not have said like, hey, I want to become this person, I'm going to go on the spiritual pilgrimage. That didn't happen in your brain at the time. But do you think that for people that are stuttering, or going through your program, how much time and effort should people spend on future pacing themselves, like who they want to become? Does that matter at all? Does it help them?
That tends to come out in the therapy process or the coaching process. So I use something called ACT, which is acceptance commitment therapy. It's an offshoot of cognitive behavioral therapy. This gets into some of the spiritual aspect in the sense that we learn to be the witness of our thoughts. And the negative thoughts are just that. At if unless we cling to them, unless we follow them, unless we go with them. And learning to observe a thought and do something uncomfortable, and even observing the sensation, like the physical sensation of nervousness, the physical sensation of, oh, I'm about to stutter, I feel tight. Noticing that, letting it go, and being able to move through it. I had to do this so much with my own personal shames. So a few things that got me in this process: the talking to my ex client who had uh, gone back to stuttering after the work that we'd done together. Now, first off, I had shame that I hadn't helped him enough. I realized that shame was born of a pride and ego, thinking that I could change people, that I could somehow wave my magic wand and fix them. That is not my role. Their role is to heal themselves, and I'm just here to help guide that. So there's a shame there. There was a shame around failing in the marriage. There's been getting over shame has been a huge part of the path that I've been on, and it continues to be there. You keep working on those things. Um, but actually, I am certainly not the only one, because if I could tell you a quick story about one of the clients that I'm working with right now. Now it's been almost 3 months, because we took a couple breaks. She's almost done the program. Now at the beginning, it was all about fluency. She wanted to be fluent. She didn't want to hear anything about that, so we worked on that, and then it softened over time. And now we're barely working on fluency techniques. She knows what she's doing, and that she does that. She's fine there. Now we're working on the mindset. Now we're working on feeling like enough. And what I'm seeing is her putting herself out there, her asking for things from the people who can give them to her, for opportunities to do new things. I want to be very careful not to give away any identifying information, but she's done some pretty cool stuff. Like, and she's, in the other day, I was so happy with her because of what she said to me. She said, without me ever using this line, on her own, I think what I have to do is let go. And I was like, oh, yes, yes, that's exactly, yes. You have to let go. And of course, letting go is hard. And, like, you have to face fear. You have to, like, look fear in the face, and breathe through it. And I'm not saying that is it is one thing to say, it is another thing to do it. But she was getting there. She's figuring it out. She's young. She's on the
Well,
younger
she
side.
was she was to your point when you started the story, she was recognizing it. She was recognizing it. Like, that's the guidance that we hope to achieve. Like, even me as a business coach, like, I'm not your savior. I just need, like, you got to do the work. I'm just here to guide you so that way you could have that aha moment. Like, people either have, we always talk about it like this. We say they have aha, oh no, or let's go moments. Aha, like, wow, that makes sense. Like, oh man, I need to work on this. Oh no, that's probably not a good thing, and that could be a good recognizer also, probably sometimes the best one, the oh no, and then let's go because like I'm hyped, like my confidence level is up, let's go. So like those, you go through those four at all different points in your life, and she recognized it. If you go back to one of my previous episodes, James, with Errol Dobler, Navy SEAL team commander. He actually, his whole leadership program starts with emotional awareness and recognition. That is step one of the entire thing. And you would think Navy SEAL, emotions, people don't put those two together,
No.
right? Like that, never. But yet it's the driving factor in leadership, your own emotional awareness. And he walks people through trigger, emotion, think, decide, act. And it's something that I do as much as I can on a regular basis. Trigger, something caused an emotion. The emotion happens. And then we usually just jump to act. We never do think and decide. So, like, you feel fear. What triggered that fear? And then you say, I recognize that I'm scared. What am I going to do about it? When you have that extra couple seconds and you get into a practice of recognizing it, your actions reflect that, and you have better quality, essentially better quality of life from it, because you're recognizing those emotions. And that's exactly what she went through. She recognized she had to let go, and that is such a huge kudos to you. Like, I mean, that's the best gift to me, is when somebody gets it like that and you're like, yes, because you know that they're going to experience the other side of things now sooner, right?
Yeah. And then, all of my messaging, and to my audience, to now your audience, is about, taking the time that you need to come to the realization that you want to work on this. And it's going to come at whatever rate it comes. And there's absolutely no pressure. It's never too late to work on your stuttering and how you feel about yourself. The only thing I will say is that it's also never too soon, because the longer we're resisting and feeling shame and fear and not feeling like we know how to work through that,
Or pride and ego stopping you.
or pride and ego stopping you, all of that, that is where the suffering comes from. Pain is inevitable. Some stuttering is inevitable. Suffering from pain and suffering from stuttering is not inevitable.
Yeah. Wow. And just suffering in general. Like, again, I just keep bringing back up the pieces about like technology, social media, and things like that. Like, people suffer so much unnecessarily because they're playing the comparison game,
Oh,
right? And then they don't know how to ask for help. And I think that, like you said with your client here, which is such a great example, like she reached high noon, and then she asked for help, and then she had those aha moments. So I absolutely love that, James. Just to
social
reflect,
media, like,
go ahead.
it's like the crystallization of ego,
It
right?
is. It is.
Right? And so if you're going on social media, you might get a little dopamine hit, but you're gonna it just kind of makes me feel gross, or
Well,
feel bad if I overdo it. Yeah, I mean, a little bit of
yeah.
social media. I'm not saying I'm
That's
totally
why I
pure.
try. That's why I try to use my social media accounts like Great American Underdog, Ron Marvo. Like, those accounts are specific in the way I curate content. It's stuff that I think is going to be beneficial for other people, and less about me, and more about them. I've had people in my life that are like, well, you never post like, things about family and things like that. Like, well, because I don't have to share that. That's not what's like, people have made social media into this race to show off. Right. Like, or to, if I don't post something for my mom on Mother's Day, she's going to think I don't love her. Like,
Right.
what? No, absolutely not. So anyway, so we hold ourselves to these, my point is, like, we hold ourselves to these standards of what society thinks is good, bad, or in between, because it's projected everywhere onto the walls. But really, I think one of the things just from this conversation as we round out is trusting yourself and doing what makes sense in terms of trusting that inner guidance system, and being able to be vulnerable enough to uh, ask for help, and then also be willing enough to go through those learning curves, once you find the help. Like, just trust that there's better on the other side. Like, you don't have to stay in suffering, whether you stutter, or it's something else that might be ailing you. Like, you can be in pain, but you don't have to stay in suffering like that. You just have to be able to put yourself out there enough, put that pride and ego aside to, I guess, go and ask for help is the first starting point. Would you say that that's how most people find you?
I would say most people find me by checking. Well, the master class is a good one because there's, first off, sometimes asking for help is a bigger step than we give it credit for. Maybe that's not the first step. The first step might be just start to examine your own beliefs about stuttering, your own beliefs. Like, are they your beliefs, or did you have them passed to you? Were you taught them? Do you believe them at a fundamental level? And looking at my masterclass might give you a starting point to begin to unpack that. And then letting that settle, sitting with that, not feeling any pressure. But when the time is right, when it feels aligned, then you can think about taking the next step, which is like booking a call with me. If you invite me to talk to you about your stutter with no expectation that we're going to necessarily work together, completely fine with me. That is not a waste of time for me. This is when I speak to someone who stutters and begin to at least see the opening of the possibility of changing the way they think about it, that is a valuable exercise. That is a valuable thing to put into the universe. If they then need time to process that, sit on it, and then come back later or go to somebody else, I just want to see the change begin to happen. And if I can just seed kernels of like changing perspective, then I'm doing my job.
I I love that. I absolutely love that, man, and I love you for that. Like, I know you now, like, through just a couple calls, but, like, just your heart. Um, I love that about you, man. I could just see that through you in our engagements and our interactions, and I'm so excited to continue our relationship too, man. I'm very grateful for having being able to do this with you and having met you. So I just want to put that on record. Um, if you had to, as we close out, James, like, uh, if you had to say, like, what's one truth about life, growth, or success that you've learned up to this point through everything that you've lived in your life experience, like, what would be the one truth that you hope people get from, learning from you or listening to you?
What comes to me is the only real power we have is our perspective. Everything else comes and goes and changes. Our life situation, how much we stutter, our money, our relationships, they come and they go, and they seem to come and go the most beautifully when we have a beautiful outlook. And that's not always easy to do. But it is the outlook that will change what you see in the world. Be the change you want to see in the world is much more practical and visceral than just a pat cliche statement.
Yeah. So I guess if I were to ask you to finish this sentence, maybe it would be different, but the world needs more people who, how would you finish that sentence? Would it be what you just said?
Yeah, the world needs more people to understand who they are.
Yeah. Yeah, they do. I love that, man. Um, I do, because I think that that is going to be a bridge for, like, this universal healing for a lot of people. Whether, again, I think that we're all very much connected, and the world wants to tell us that we're disconnected. And part of my mission with this show is to show people how connected we truly are, regardless of race, religion, or anything else that quote unquote separates us on the outside, and how much we can be the drivers of change in our lives when we realize how much more connected we actually are. and how we show up every day can really change not just your reality, but the reality of others around you. And I think that that's such a great point for us to kind of round out the conversation. But once again, James, I just want to thank you for being on. And as for the Unstoppable Voice Coaching Program, what can people expect? I think that they've learned a lot about it just in this conversation, but what else can they expect from it? And where can they find it if they're interested in learning more from you or having you be their quote unquote guidance system in overcoming stuttering?
Well, I'd suggest starting with the masterclass. It's the 3 steps. Discover the 3-step system that helps professionals and entrepreneurs who stutter to speak freely and fearlessly, even if speech therapy hasn't worked. Uh, Check out the masterclass, and if you do choose to enter your email information, I will send you an email every few days. I'm not gonna like bombard you. I just like to have a little gentle nudge that this exists and tell you a little bit about it over time, so that it's like this kind of a non-pressure reminder that the invitation's open. And if you invite me, again, as I said before, I would be honored to give you as much or as little help as, we could just start with a conversation. Let's just not take it any further than that.
And that's all it needs to start as, is just a conversation. Just you and I started with the conversation. Now we're here adding value to an audience that can definitely benefit from what you spoke about today, James. Is there anything else you'd like to just add as we close out?
Just if anyone out there who stutters is listening, the world needs to hear your voice. I want to hear your voice.
I love that. I want you to reach out to James, not just because he has a coaching program, but more importantly, his why behind his coaching program, which is to really make a difference and an impact in those that have stuttering at the moment and realize that they can overcome it. Just work on themselves and then work on the fluency. And it might not be in that exact order, but there is hope. There is an opportunity for you to find help. And there's wonderful, beautiful people out there like James Burden here today with me who can help you do just that and help and be that guidance system for you along your journey. So, James, once again, I want to thank you. This has been another incredible episode of Great American Underdog, where we share stories of strength and success from real life underdogs. And we're out. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.